can't believe they turned the show into a musical.
So everybody just watches TV?
Well, this show especially, yeah.
It's
But there are other shows we watch.
just TV though.
Huh?
It's just video? You just watch
yeah.
video all day?
Yeah, it's TV, video. It's what we do.
I want to get this straight. So basically, we're producing some of the best digital video audio products on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And what this team does all day is basically watch sitcoms and Oprah, eat candy, maybe bonbons. That's what you guys do all day long?
We like to think we do video.
Isn't it amazing how we can actually produce some of the best digital video audio products on the planet, and yet we have people that watch video all day long eating bonbons? Actually, that's not quite true. Hello everyone, I'm Johnny L. I'm the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Creative Solutions Group at Adobe. And we're here with another episode of Inside Adobe, the podcast. And we want to talk to you today about really what's behind the scenes happening in the DVA group. We're going to talk to you about some of the products we have out today, some of the developments we have underway, and maybe even a little glimpse of what you might see coming in the next generation of products from us. So again, why don't we jump right in? Joining me today is Giles Baker, who's the product manager from the DVA group, and we're going to go on a deep dive on our product suites and portfolios and a little glimpse of the future direction. Giles, you've been at Adobe now for almost 7 years. Why don't you first tell us a little bit about your role in the DVA space?
Well, I'm the Senior Product Manager for Adobe Premiere Pro here at Adobe, which means I'm responsible for the things that go in the Adobe Premiere Pro box, which is the Premiere Pro application for video editing, Adobe Media Encoder, which we use to create video and audio streams for distribution across the internet and on disks, and a product called On Location, which is designed to get faster and better results from your camera while working on the set.
Excellent. So Giles, people obviously know that we just came out with the CS3 version of Production Premium, and that was a leap ahead in performance and functionality. We were back on the Macintosh platform and really got very competitive again in that space, even more so than we had in the past. But in addition to that, we also came out with Master Collection, of which Production Premium is a component piece. So there was a lot of integration that happens not just within the video and DVA products, but actually across into Photoshop and Illustrator and Flash and other products as well. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what we did in Production Premium, and then also what we did for the integration across the entire portfolio.
Well, I think the biggest effort that we put into Production Premium in the CS3 cycle from most of the teams was getting it to the Mac. Premiere Pro, Encore, none of these applications had been on the Macintosh before, and so it was a huge effort just to take those applications that were very well formed on the Windows platform and had a great following and a customer base, and take them to the Macintosh and integrate them into the suite. The other thing, of course, is just cross-communication and working with all of these other teams. We have about 17 major projects in Master Collection, and making those all work together and integrate seamlessly was a big challenge.
Production Premium obviously includes a variety of technologies and components. Can you talk a little bit about what the customers believe were the most compelling components that they're responding to most positively?
Well, as you say, there's a lot of integration in Production Premium and a lot of different components. The great response that we're seeing from customers is around the integration and the ability to move content seamlessly from application to application. I think probably the best example of that is a feature called Dynamic Link, and this was brand new to the Macintosh platform in CS3. It enables you to take the content from After Effects and bring it directly into Premiere Pro. Now what that means is that you can do your motion graphics design in After Effects and try it out in the context of the video that you're editing without wasting time rendering content, bringing in different files and all of that kind of thing. And you know, it's a great example of how the integration between the products really stimulates the creative intentions and the creative process, because you never get hung up waiting for things to render and move from application to application.
That's right. During the rollout, we had mentioned at that time that in the normal workflow, when people are going back and forth between After Effects and Premiere Pro, that the time cost that they had in actually rendering, waiting for that to happen was a huge burden in that workflow. So obviously the fact that we can shorten that up and the fact that people can actually go back and forth between those two applications without having to wait and then go re-render back out in Premiere Pro can be a 10, 20, 30 minutes on a small piece, but actually up to hours and even days in the entire workflow and time savings.
Yeah, it's amazing, and you know the great thing is that that's exactly right. It will take a long time to render, and it's one of those things that people have never questioned. It's this thing that you've been doing for years and years, and so it's just part of the workflow. And so when you can walk into a customer and say, we're going to remove this barrier from your workflow and allow you just to flick between these two applications, then all of these creative possibilities become a reality. You know, people are used to working with clients looking over their shoulder, but then, you know, many times a client will say, can we take a look at that in the editor, and it's time for a coffee break. Now you just keep working.
We obviously had high expectations for the product before we announced it, and now since that time we've seen incredible results and great response and great feedback. Have there been any things with the product you've been surprised by from the customer base?
I've been very surprised by the number of users of different editing applications who have really adopted Production Premium as a suite that they use in video production, especially on the Macintosh platform. You know, there are lots and lots of people using other video editing applications out there, but Production Premium works very well for those people as well. And what we're seeing now is more and more people are starting to use additional components of the Production Premium suite, moving into Premiere Pro, thinking about editing and working with After Effects and that kind of thing.
Now, obviously, we're not the only game in town, and there are actually applications available on other platforms from other vendors. And we've had some good success initially with the product as we've rolled it out, but there are other products coming from Apple and other companies. How we stacked up specifically against the folks who are actually going head-to-head with us?
It's a good question. I mean, when you look at the editing, the basic editing feature set between each one of the professional applications out there, there's a lot of similarity. You know, editing is about storytelling, and there are some basic paradigms that I think everyone really follows. There are obviously differences between the different applications. Where Premiere Pro really excels is being slightly easier to use. People tend to find that they can pick it up a little more quickly. The integration with the Adobe products is obviously an absolute key factor. And the ability to move with Photoshop content and After Effects content into that Premiere Pro workflow really gets the job done very quickly. But you know, we don't think of it as an either-or choice. And the great thing about having Production Premium is that you can use the tool that you want to for the job. And when you're using Premiere Pro, a lot of its features will get the job done more quickly than something else out there.
Well, that's good on the broad perspective, but what's hot right now when we talk about the editing side of Premiere Pro?
We have a lot going on, actually. I mean, talking about the CS3 cycle being a real strain on the team, it was definitely a big effort, but everyone has just kept moving and kept working, and we've got some really exciting things that we've already released, actually. We released a brand new update for the CS3 release, which adds compatibility with Panasonic P2 cameras. That was released last week, middle of October.
Let's pause there for a second. So obviously new cameras are always coming out. Panasonic now out with a new camera and a new format. Why is supporting the P2 format important for our customer base?
The cool thing about the P2 workflow is that it's completely file-based. And this really represents the big trend in professional and consumer camcorders right now. Everything is moving away from tape and to file-based storage. So it might be on a memory card, it might be on a hard disk. And that means that you can take your content and start editing it straight away. People in the past have been used to shooting on tape, coming back to the studio, ingesting all of that content and then kind of sifting through it. And now with the file-based workflows, you can just start editing straight away. So it saves time and gives you the opportunity, again, to be more creative in your workflow.
So support for the P2 format is obviously important for customers. Maybe you can talk a little bit more generally about what's happening in the tapeless world, why that workflow is actually taking form right now, and why some of the more progressive leading-edge customers are actually moving to tapeless now. What's happening in the tapeless space?
Well, it's interesting. The migration to file-based workflows is kind of happening at an accelerated pace on the high end and on the more consumer-level cameras. That we have a large number of customers who are using tape that are probably going to be using tape for quite a while. But in the broadcast space, especially with news, the ability to basically go out, shoot your story and edit in the field from the camera is a huge advantage.
Well, Giles, it's always great to talk about these things, but you know what? sometimes it's better to look at them. And this is a visual product, it's a video product, an audio product. It's better to actually see this firsthand. So why don't we take a quick demo, and can you help us with that?
All right, well, in order to do that, I'm going to introduce you to Will Renses. He's our engineering manager for the update team on the Premiere Pro side, and he can talk you through the whole P2 update and how we came to bring it to market.
Hi, Johnny. So to show you the workflow, we've got here a P2 camera as well as a P2 card reader device. So Johnny, this is a sample P2 card. This is a 16 gig card in this particular case, and you'll notice that it's a standard PCM-CIA card. So it will mount into a standard PCM-CIA slot on a laptop. It will also mount directly on the camera or onto card reader devices such as this one I have over here from Panasonic. And these just plug in as regular USB 2 devices. So if I go ahead and just pop this card into the camera, you're going to see it show up and mount itself instantly as just another regular disk drive in the operating system. And if I fire up Premiere, in the 3.1 updater, what we've done is we've added new presets that allow you to use DVC Pro HD, DVC Pro SD, there's different formats and different sizes you can pick. So we're just going to go ahead and pick the 720 format, which is the one we're using right now. And we'll be able to just import the footage directly into the project. Users will sometimes use footage and copy it locally to a central capture drive, but we actually allow you to import it in directly into the project and start editing material directly off the card if you so wish. So you can start previewing directly. So you'll actually notice that this footage here is actually the footage that we just shot of you a little bit earlier. So here's the lab that we had just shot a few minutes ago. So tying into the whole file-based workflow. So this is particularly useful for if you need to do rough cuts on the scene where you're doing your shoot, or for example, if you're a news cutter and you need to start assembling your rough shots very quickly while you're still in the field. Obviously, this is a huge asset. So one of the other advantages is that since we're using the P2 format natively, we actually allow you to lay back edited material directly to the camera through a file export menu. So other solutions like Final Cut, for example, force you to do a transcode operation where they wrap it back into a QuickTime file. Since we're native, we don't have to sit there and wait for the system to transmogrify this information into something that you can edit with. We just work with it natively. And similarly, we can dump it right back to the card, and I'd be able to play it off the card directly back to air if I so chose. Speaking of the export feature, this was actually one of the requests from the BBC. We spend a lot of time with a very focused group of beta testers, as well as very specific clients, to make sure that we're focusing exactly on what they need, since we have a limited amount of time to deliver stuff while we're working on things out of cycle.
Well, it's great to see what we're doing and where the future is taking us there. But as we talk about the future and just kind of the short-term things of what we're doing right now, maybe we can give a little glimpse about where things are going in CS4, and talk, if you could talk a little bit about kind of our direction there and what we might see coming down the road. But be careful, we don't want to give too much away.
Sure, so obviously not giving too much away, but I think it's clear from the demo that we just saw that the file-based workflow has a huge number of advantages to our customers in the workflow over the traditional tape-based methods. And you know, that reflects the overall trend in the industry. So in CS4, we are really going to be focusing on that as a high priority. There are a number of new camera formats that are coming out, and we obviously need to support those, and we'll be adding support in Premiere Pro. But the key thing that we're interested in is really exploiting the opportunities that we get from the file-based workflow. Let's not translate all of the old tape-based paradigms and bring them to the file-based workflow. Let's start from the ground up and really design something that works as well as it possibly can. So the team is working very, very hard on that, and I think the result is going to be fantastic.
So amazing, here we are just, you know, literally a couple of months after we shipped and went through the challenge and the uphill battle to get production premium shipped, CS3 version shipped, and yet here we are already midstream working on next generation CS4. So exactly when again is the ship date of CS4?
You know,
don't say